It's still an extremely fun time killer that really helps open the gates not only for Wild Tangent, but casual gaming in general. Now this may have been the first release for PB and his friends, but it most certainly isn't the last. Maybe next time we can delve a little deeper into the next installment of the series, where things get just a bit weirder in a whole new sporting endeavor. Well, here we are. In the last video, I covered Polar Bowler, one of the early initial games to come from Wild Tangent's early years. The game was an instant hit, getting plenty of people's eyes on what Wild Tangent had to offer. During this time in 2004, Wild Tangent had dipped their toes into a few different markets, one of these markets being the advert game market. These games usually consisted of reskins of popular browser games, something a lot of casual game publishers took advantage of. Wild Tangent was partially focused on this part of the market, giving us a few reskins of already popular games, including a Shrek reskin of Polar Bowler to advertise for Shrek 2. This, along with a partnership with WorldWinner, a site focused on real cash prizes for playing games, helped propel Wild Tangent to be a strong force in the market. Around this time, the next installment in the Polar series released, allowing PB and his friends to try their hand at another casual sport: golfing. Golf games in 2004 were not uncommon even for console gaming. The PGA Tour series had a very strong following that grew with each passing installment. Mario also had his time enjoying a round on the green in a couple of games as well. Golfing, especially in the early 2000s, was a pastime that even now has been popular and still remains a mainstay in the sports genre. Wild Tangent, after the success of Polar Bowler, took the chance to have PB and its friends try out a new sport on for size, one far, far away from the Arctic. This time, they went golfing. Let's start at the beginning. Not that far back. That's better. The start menu shows a fairly unfamiliar territory, being a golf course set in parts unknown. The menu lets us start a new game, check high scores, visit the options menu, get help, or retreat back home. The options menu is oddly familiar to the Polar Bowler options, and even the help menu also links to an HTML file, much like Polar Bowler did. It's still a really nice touch of nostalgia to see these still working even today. Starting a new game allows us to choose our character. Here, we can input our name and choose from a pretty diverse set of characters. PB, the Penguin, Walrus, and even Santa Claus have returned, along with some new faces we haven't seen before. These include an elf, beaver, moose, and even a fox. Here, we can also look at the stats for each character. The stats are broken up into power, accuracy, putt, and flight. All of them have varying stats ranging from 1 star to 5, so playstyles between each character can feel completely different. Choosing who you'd like to tee off with, we move to Mode Select. We can choose between Normal Mode or Championship Mode. The only difference with these two modes is Championship Mode has power-ups on, while Normal Mode does not. After selecting a mode, we choose how many holes you wish to shoot. We can choose from the front 9 courses, the back 9 courses, or all 18 holes in a row. Once we select this, we finally load into the game with a pretty cute load screen of PB riding on a golf cart, and then finally dropped on the green to tee off. The controls are fairly simple, only using the mouse to aim and power. The arrows at the bottom are for adjusting your aim, while the bar on the left shows your power. The goal is simple: get from tee to hole on each course in the least amount of strokes as possible. When going for a shot, you click the red circle at the bottom of the power bar. The more filled the bar is, the farther the shot. I like the added touch of having a little blue meter that shows you how many yards you'll go at a specific power. There is also a red circle on the course that shows you where your shot will land before you make it. While the golf ball is in the air, you can actually control the angle of your shot mid-air. This makes the game a lot easier, but can also lead to some fairly insane shots if you end up giving it the right amount of spin on the way down. If you choose Championship Mode, you'll see different colored rings in the air. These are power-ups that you can use during the game to get different effects. The purple ring removes a stroke from your counter. This means that the shot you just took doesn't count against your total strokes. The yellow ring adds power to your shot. I rarely find myself using this, as it usually just messes up the shot I was making into being way worse than what it could have been. The blue power-up is a points power-up. The ring point amounts change with the amount of dollar signs in the ring. Just like Polar Bowler, Polar Golfer has its own set of unlockable characters. The requirement's only needing 1,000 points to start, all the way up to 10,000 points. This bar isn't really an obstacle once you get to grips with how the game plays. Looking at the gameplay, it's mostly standard golf fare. Play through how many ever holes you end up choosing and shoot for the highest scores possible. Once you finish out your scorecard, the game ends and you're taken to the leaderboards to see just how well you stack against the rest of the names on the board. The leaderboards are sectioned out by each character, so you can see at a glance for each character's scores and how they stack up with other characters in the roster. The real challenge comes with using each character, as they play very differently. Putting with PB is a completely different feeling compared to putting with the Moose. This goes for about every character. I noticed shots that, while good for most of the roster, some simply struggle with getting the ball to land right where you really want it to. PB is around the middle of the pack, and super good to start learning the mechanics with. One thing that I find super charming about this game has to be the announcer. The voice clearly mimicking what would be heard in the finals of any local or professional golf tournament, using hushed tones no matter what happens on the green.
Well played. Great job. Sorry, that's out of bounds.
Some might find it annoying, but most times I've just tuned it out when really going for a shot. Even when calling an out-of-bounds shot, it gets a chuckle out of me, no matter how badly I played the shot. Just like before, the music in this game is stellar. I once again have found myself sitting and listening to the game's OST in my free time, and throughout many times during the making of this video. It strikes that balance between smooth but upbeat music that really fits the game's setting really well. Just like Polar Bowler, they nail the brass extremely well, while also using a lot more of a jazzy guitar and bass mix to tie it all up in a neat little bow. The short of everything Polar Golfer has to offer. It was an expansion on gameplay, at least compared to Polar Bowler, and offered a decent amount of replayability to try different characters and see just how well you could score with each one. This for a while stood confidently as the Polar series' next bestseller, prompting Wild Tangent to look into a sequel to keep people satiated until the next groundbreaking title. This time, Polar Golfer goes on vacation. Let's take a look at Polar Golfer Pineapple Cup. Pineapple Cup shares a lot in common with its predecessor. The menu is the same, featuring a more tropical theming, along with the ever-so-charming options and help menu, also displayed as an HTML file. The character select is pretty much the same, except everyone's now sporting some different outfits, and new characters are here to pad out the roster. To unlock them, the goals remain the same as previous, only needing 1,000 points more for each progressive unlock. The game modes remain the same, though in this title I always recommend keeping the powers enabled, for reasons I'll get into later. For now, it's time to load in to see just what the tropics have in store for us. When starting, we get the same controls prompt and enjoy a bit of a touch-up for the HUD. It's a nice touch without changing how the controls are laid out or displayed. The controls here are the exact same, using the same movement and power bars, along with the display of how many yards your shot will go. One thing you may notice right off the bat is the sheer amount of lava and out-of-bounds places even on the first few holes. This leads me to my main gripe with Pineapple Cup. The fact that the difficulty for the holes feels way more artificial instead of gradual. This makes the game feel just more unfun to play, because more times than not, you'll only find the optimal lines you can take end up right in an out-of-bounds location. It just doesn't feel as good to play, and can even feel even more horribly inconsistent with the differing stats of each character. The physics are something else to note. They feel slightly off as well. Gameplay's mostly normally, but I noticed some shots played completely different compared to the original. While thinking of changes, let's go over the soundtrack. The music in this game is fairly good, but I do find myself preferring the tones that Polar Golfer provides compared to this set of tracks. The tropical vibes are certainly here, but they feel forgettable. None of them have been stuck in my head at all, and even thinking now, unless I actually play them, I can't recall how any of them sound even after recording all of the gameplay. Is the announcer. It's most certainly a rip on a Caribbean accent, and while a neat touch, I feel like it just feels out of place. It's loud, and at times I struggle to make out what he even really ends up saying.
Hey, you Lolo! Not out of bounds! Oh, you got editing on that one. Oh, not even. Good one.
I think it fits the vibe, but doesn't fit the atmosphere as much as I would hope. I even contemplated turning it off from time to time, especially after hearing him call my third out of bounds on a single hole. If I had to pick a clear winner between the two, I would, and still found myself going back to enjoy Polar Golfer more than Pineapple Cup. It's just not a contest. And that about sums up the Polar Golfer series of titles. An extremely fun time killer, though I feel like they really overdid it in the worst ways when it came to the sequel. Both games are incredible time killers, and I would always recommend these compared to other time wasters out and about. Believe it or not, this still wasn't the end for PB, as he would find himself once again enjoying a new sport for both him and all of his friends to participate in. Though this time, they hit the river just for a friendly race.